So how do you fit 5 people on a boat that sleeps only 4? And what do you do when they're on board? Listen up. Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley Podcast. I'm sharing some details about what we did when our kids, plus one, came to visit for Christmas on our small 28-foot boat. There was a little compromising involved. Today's episode of the Boat Galley Podcast is sponsored by MantisMarine.com, maker of the Mantis Anchor, now available in models with and without a roll bar. Proven to set reliably in the most challenging bottoms, the Mantis Anchor digs like no other, making anchoring safer and boating more enjoyable. Mantis Marine brings to market practical, durable, and affordable marine products, including anchoring gear, scuba diving accessories, rechargeable waterproof headlamps for hands-free lighting, and solar charging navigation lights. Visit MantisMarine.com and see for yourself. There's definitely no compromise in our minds with our anchor. We do have a Mantis and love it. Sleep much better knowing that that thing is hooking us to the ground. But I digress a little bit. So, 5 people on a boat that sleeps 4, cozy 4. One of the reasons that we kept Calypso for extended cruising instead of upgrading to a larger boat, because we had this whole big spreadsheet trying to figure out if we were going to buy a bigger boat or keep the one that we had. We didn't really plan on buying a second one, but that's an entire other story. We wanted to be able to fly our kids in for holidays aboard. We realized that having a smaller boat allowed us to do a lot of things, and we could make it work in a pinch with 4 when most of the time it was just 2. And a Bristol Channel cutter works great for 2 people. There are 4 berths. There's ostensibly enough storage for appropriate amounts of stuff. You better like each other. You better be prepared for a modest amount of shuffling. But we could probably manage to do longer range cruising with 4 people aboard. I think there probably would be a lot of land breaks. But other than the fact that we did take the kids when they were little on a boat layout that was slightly different than what we have now, but 4 adults on board is a little tight. And we are cruising on Mischief this winter, which is our second Bristol Channel cutter. If you're not aware, we have 2 of the same kind of boat. Lots of stories there, lots of other podcasts about it. There are a few projects that we didn't really do because we weren't sure that we would keep the boat, because there was no point in putting even more money into a boat that we weren't necessarily going to keep, and a few projects that we haven't gotten to, both of which make the storage equation with 4 people aboard a little bit more challenging. And the biggest issue is that the fridge, which is a plug-in cooler style ARB box that we borrowed from Calypso, it lives in the quarter berth, along with a few other project odds and ends. We roll up the cushion. We kept the cushion because we knew we were going to need that space for kids coming aboard when we left, and we tuck it deep into the quarter berth. There is a large icebox, old style icebox, complete with a well-ventilated plexiglass divider that is supposed to be to keep the blocks of ice from the food, but we're using that as a massive pantry for kind of crushable sorts of things. Someday we'll probably install real refrigeration in that space, but for now we just borrowed the fridge from Calypso. And we had planned to have our 2 kids come to visit us for Christmas. And a couple of months ago, our son Julian asked if he could bring his girlfriend. We reminded him and Jules that it's kind of tight quarters with 4, that there are only bunks for 4. And after checking with our daughter to make sure that there were no concerns with having a 5th person aboard, we all decided, okay, we're going to be a boat of 5 for Christmas. And the biggest concerns were sleeping and storage and privacy. I addressed the privacy issue on a podcast a couple of weeks ago. But we told the kids that, our kids knew it, but we also told Jules and reminded our kids, because sometimes you forget when you've been away for a while. We stressed the need for efficient packing in soft bags only. No rolly bags. We don't have room for rolly bags. We provided the sheets and the towels, but asked the kids to bring their own pillows, which also cuts down on their kind of excess storage space. We do have towels for Everybody on board the Marmara Imports Turkish towels take up almost no space, and they dry in a flash, so it's great. I can have enough towels for guests, no problem. The headspace, with its relatively generous footprint and a curtain that can be pulled shut, would serve as the head, but also changing room. And then we moved the quarter berth, changed it from the garage into a bunk. The fridge moved to a space on the floor right next to the galley. We spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out where the fridge was going to be. But we decided it's just going to be on the floor right next to the galley, and it will serve as a fifth seat when we're at the table down below. Jeremy took the opportunity to reconfigure storage space in the forepeak to hold the project materials that had been living in the quarter berth. And fairly easily, the quarter berth was a cozy bunk. So we have our bunk, which is on the port side. It's a pull-out double that we use the port side settee cushion to go in to make the double. And then the starboard side is a bunk, and the quarter berth is now a bunk. That's great. We're capable of sleeping 4 people on actual cushions. But what about the 5th person? Initially, Julian figured that he'd be sleeping in a hammock on deck. And besides the fact that hammocks, I think, are terrible for sleeping, I'm a stomach sleeper, so I would never be able to sleep in a hammock. But the other thing is, it rained every single night the kids were aboard. It's really good that that idea never truly got traction. Instead, we rolled out a camping mat into a very narrow space on the starboard salon floor. He used the sleeping bag that we have on board as his bedding, and the main cabin was, quite literally, at bedtime, wall to wall, hull to hull, beds. There is definitely a little bit of get ready for bed dance that happens on board, even when it's just Jeremy and me, because he makes up the bed. Generally, he is making up the bed while I'm doing dishes from dinner. It involves pulling out the slider board, moving the cushion from the port side settee, dealing with sheets. Not a lot of excess space in the salon while that's going on. And then after the bed is all made, there's head time and toothbrushing time, because of course we only have the one sink, and so you got to wait for the dishes to be done before you're brushing your teeth. So lots and lots of different things going on. Multiply those competing interests by 2.5. At night, all those things are happening for all those people all at the same time. But we did make it work. Figuring out the order of events took a day or two. We made our bed, then we made B's bed, the starboard side settee. So turning the settee from the couch that it was during the day into a bed. And then make Julian's bed, which involved rolling out the camping mat, putting the sleeping bag on the floor, and putting a pillow down. And then use the head, change into PJs. People are doing that variously while they're brushing their teeth, before or after, depending on the whole thing. And in the morning, we would get up before the kids did, 20-year-olds, 20-ish-year-olds. Julian would slide into our bunk as soon as we vacated it, leaving the floor space a little accessible. We would do our coffee in the cockpit and check the weather via the internet as opposed to the radio, because normally we would listen on the single sideband, and the kids would join us as they woke up, and then I'd make breakfast once everybody was up. We'd put the beds away, tidy up, do the dishes, and have the whole day begin. It worked particularly well because we had decent weather, other than the rain at night, but we were able to be outside most of the day. And that is kind of a key to boat life, I think, in general, is being able to be outside. Finding some way to have shade, maybe rain, spray protection, all of that is really makes a small space much more workable. The kids were also here for a pretty short period of time. They were here for 6 days, 6 nights, 5 days, fully, which sometimes you can do things on a short period of time that would be a little harder with a little bit longer. Those compromises that you make, you can deal with when you're talking about a short period of time. But when it's a rainy day, we had that last full day with the kids was a rainy day that we needed to go sailing to get back to Marsh Harbor because they were flying out. And there were lots of games that were going on. Bananagrams, cards, Settlers of Catan. Finally, though, at the end of the evening, by the time We'd gotten the beds done and teeth brushed and whatever. The rain was done, thank goodness. The stars came out, and we were able to open things up to get some air and ventilation down below. So 5 people on a Bristol channel cutter, we did manage to make it work quite happily with almost no snippies. That's kind of amazing on a small space. Don't let anybody tell you can't sleep 5 people on a BCC. And if people tell you off the bat that you can't go cruising in a boat smaller than 35 feet, I think the answer, as it is with most things cruising related, is it totally depends on the boat and on you. I can't wait to share an anchorage with you, however many people we happen to have on board, and we get to toast to our good fortune and amazing, amazing life that we're living out here on the water. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love hearing from our listeners. We love it when you share us with your friends. We love it when you don't forget to subscribe in your favorite podcast app. There's one of these every week trying to help you make boat life better, which is what the Boat Galley is all about. Have the most spectacular week.